What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey, still holding it down, still make the best games, and you know this, bro. It's the truth. If you don't like it, you can have that seatbelt. Alright, so I promise that this is not becoming a TV channel. I just had to get this video out there because something's going on that's really getting on my nerves. So, kind of like what happened in gaming a couple generations ago with everybody using raw polygon count to determine how good games were going to look and what was more powerful for a system. Similar thing is going on right now with TVs with the amount of local dimming zones. So what's getting lost in the shuffle here is people forgetting what local dimming is for. People are getting so caught up with how many zones the TV has and all this stuff, and they're forgetting why local dimming is there in the first place. Now, this doesn't concern OLEDs because OLEDs don't need local dimming because they can pretty much dim their pixels at a pixel level. They don't need local dimming. So local dimming is a straight LCD LED thing. I also want to point out that the TVs that have a extra wide viewing layer for better side viewing on the TVs, there's actually an extra layer on the screen that makes the viewing angles better, but it also affects the contrast in a negative way. So those TVs would actually need more zones. The Sony X900H does not have that wide angle viewing feature, which is why the native contrast of the TV, despite not having any more zones, has a higher native contrast than the more expensive Sony X950H. The Sony TV only has 32 or less local dimming zones, right? The native contrast of this TV is excellent. It's 4,267 to 1. The contrast with local dimming boosts it up to 4,786 to 1, right? Which actually isn't that big of an increase after the local dimming, but that's probably because there's not a lot of local dimming zones. Now, let's take the Samsung Q80T, which costs significantly more money than this Sony, all right? This has a native contrast of 3,042 to 1. And with local dimming, the contrast is 4,225 to 1. The Q80T has 50 local dimming zones. 50. Yet, the native contrast of the Sony is higher than the Samsung even after it has their local dimming on. The Sony has a higher native contrast with local dimming off than the Samsung's contrast with local dimming on high with more local dimming units or zones than the Sony. Look, the amount of local dimming zones alone does not matter. What matters is all the other factors that go into it, along with the application of the local dimming. You can have a bunch of zones all you want. If they don't perform well, or if it's poorly implemented, it doesn't mean anything.
In this video, we're going to compare 3 HDMI 2.1 TVs from LG, Samsung, and Sony, and find out which is the best for Sony PS5 gaming. Hello everyone, my name is Vincent Teo. I am a TV reviewer and ex-professional calibrator. Today, we're going to compare 3 of the most popular 4K TVs with HDMI 2.1 support from LG, Samsung, and Sony in the UK for the year 2020. On your far left is the LG CX or C10 OLED. In the middle is the Samsung Q90T QLED, and on your far right is the Sony X900H LED LCD television. Okay, game mode usually cuts down video processing to achieve the lowest input lag, which can affect the effectiveness of local dimming on full array local dimming LED LCDs such as the Samsung Q90T and the Sony X900H. On this zone count pattern from the Spears and Munsell UHD HDR benchmark disc, the LG CX maintained inky blacks with no blooming artifacts, since pixel-level light control is inherent in the self-emissive OLED technology and does not degrade in game mode. Between the Samsung Q90T and the Sony X900H, the Q90T exhibited more blooming in game mode, even though it has almost 4 times the number of local dimming zones on the X900H. The Q90T exhibited more blooming in game mode, even though it has almost 4 times the number of local dimming zones on the X900H, suggesting that a lot had to be sacrificed to obtain the lowest input lag. Actual gameplay followed the same trend, with the Samsung Q90T appearing a bit more washed out in dark scenes than the Sony X900H.
Look, the amount of local dimming zones alone does not matter. What matters is all the other factors that go into it, along with the application of the local dimming. You can have a bunch of zones all you want. If they don't perform well, or if it's poorly implemented, it doesn't mean anything.